The first scream didn't come from the house. It came from inside the silence that followed. On a quiet winter morning in Northwood County, a sheriff's deputy named Eli Mercer stood in the Huntley family kitchen, staring at a freezer that hummed too calmly for what it contained. The white lid was scratched, dented, old, nothing special. It looked like every other freezer in every other farmhouse across the county, and that was the problem. Because no one ever expects horror to look ordinary. 3 weeks earlier, no one had expected anything from Daniel Huntley either. Daniel was the kind of man people talked over. He stocked shelves at the local grocery store, worked the night shift, and walked home with his head down. He was 32, soft-spoken, and painfully polite. The town saw him as weak, especially compared to his older brother, Marcus Huntley. Marcus was everything Daniel wasn't. He was loud, charismatic, a local contractor with political connections and a reputation for getting things done. He sponsored the sheriff's charity dinners, donated to church renovations, and had the mayor on speed dial. When Marcus spoke, people listened. When Daniel spoke, people forgot. Even inside the Huntley family, the hierarchy was clear. Their parents were long gone. The farmhouse belonged to Marcus. Daniel lived in the spare room, paying rent, cooking meals, cleaning up after his brother's parties. Neighbors said Marcus looked out for him. Daniel never corrected them. No one noticed the bruises. No one noticed the way Daniel flinched when Marcus raised his voice. No one noticed the locked freezer in the garage that Marcus insisted no one touch, not even Daniel. Power tools, Marcus would say. Dangerous stuff? Daniel nodded, always nodded. Then one night, Marcus didn't come home. At first, no one worried. Marcus disappeared all the time. Business trips, late nights, women whose names he never remembered. But when 3 days passed and his phone went straight to voicemail, people began to ask questions. Daniel went to the police. He sat in the station lobby for nearly 2 hours before anyone spoke to him. When he finally told them his brother was missing, the officer barely looked up. "Grown man," the officer said, "probably blowing off steam. But he wouldn't leave his truck," Daniel said softly, "or his wallet." That earned a smirk. Marcus Huntley had friends in the department. Daniel knew that. Everyone did. And when the sheriff himself suggested Marcus might be avoiding creditors, or worse, staging a disappearance, Daniel realized something chilling. No one was looking for Marcus. And that meant no one was looking at the house except Daniel. The freezer had been humming louder lately. At night, Daniel lay awake listening to it through the walls, a low mechanical drone, steady and patient, like it was waiting. Every time Marcus had yelled at him, every time he'd been shoved, threatened, mocked, Daniel told himself it would stop, that if he endured long enough, something would change. Something did. On the 4th night after Marcus vanished, Daniel called 911. His voice shook as he spoke. I think my brother is in the freezer." There was a pause, then a laugh. The dispatcher assumed it was a prank, but something in Daniel's breathing, ragged, uneven, made her log the call. Deputy Eli Mercer was the only one available. Young, new, not invited to Marcus's barbecues, not connected enough to dismiss the call outright. When Eli arrived at the farmhouse, Daniel was sitting on the porch, hands folded, eyes hollow. "Where is he?" Eli asked. Daniel stood and walked toward the garage. The freezer sat in the corner beneath hanging coats and rusted tools. Eli hesitated. The air felt wrong, too cold, too clean. When he lifted the lid, the smell hit first. Sweet, metallic, wrong. Inside, wrapped in plastic and frozen solid, was Marcus Huntley, the town's golden boy, the powerful man who was never supposed to fall. The scream that followed came from Eli. Within hours, the farmhouse was swarming with police. News vans lined the road. Neighbors whispered in disbelief, and Daniel Huntley was placed in handcuffs. Justice, it seemed, had chosen its culprit. The interrogation was swift and merciless. Detectives assumed motive without asking. Years of resentment, jealousy, money. They told Daniel he'd finally snapped, that he'd planned it, that he was a monster hiding behind a meek face. Daniel listened quietly. Then, finally, he spoke. "You didn't ask how I did it," he said. The room went still. Daniel leaned forward. "You should ask why the freezer has a lock on the outside." That's when the power shifted. A forensic sweep of the garage uncovered something the first responders missed. Deep scratch marks inside the freezer lid. Blood beneath the seal. Old blood. And something worse. Hidden cameras. Marcus had been recording. Not for security, for control. The videos showed years of abuse. Marcus taunting Daniel, beating him, threatening him, locking him inside the freezer as punishment. Sometimes for hours, sometimes longer. "You'll freeze," Marcus laughed on one recording, "and no one will ever know." But on the final video, the laughter stopped. Marcus slipped on ice, hit his head. The freezer lid slammed shut. The lock clicked into place. Daniel stood on the other side, shaking. The camera captured him, staring at the freezer, listening to Marcus scream. Then, silence. The room went cold as the footage ended. Daniel hadn't killed his brother. He had simply not saved him. The charges were dropped. The town's opinion changed overnight. The powerful man became the villain. The weak man became the survivor. People spoke about justice, about karma, about how evil eventually traps itself. Daniel was released, but justice, like cold, has layers. Because when investigators reviewed the footage frame by frame, they noticed something strange. In the reflection of the freezer lid just before it closed, Daniel was smiling. And somewhere in the evidence archive, there was one final corrupted file labeled, "It lived inside an evidence server in Northwood County," flagged as corrupted, mislabeled, and unimportant. Officially, the case was closed. Daniel Huntley was free. Marcus Huntley was dead. The town had already chosen its ending, and endings make people comfortable. But comfort has a way of blinding those who stop looking. Deputy Eli Mercer couldn't stop thinking about the smile. He'd replayed the moment in his head 100 times. The faint curve of Danielle's lips reflected in the freezer lid. Everyone else saw a victim finally safe. Eli saw timing, control, restraint. Guilt doesn't smile. On the third night after Daniel's release, Eli stayed late. The station was quiet, the kind of quiet that hums like a freezer motor. He logged into the evidence archive using credentials no one bothered to revoke from a junior deputy. He searched the file name again. This time, it opened. The video was grainy at first, static. A timestamp flickered. In the corner, 2 weeks before Marcus's death. The camera angle was wrong, lower than the others, hidden behind a toolbox. What it captured wasn't violence. It was preparation. Daniel stood alone in the garage, holding a small screwdriver. His hands didn't shake. He loosened the freezer's internal latch, millimeter by millimeter, until it stuck just enough to fail from the inside. Then he tested the exterior lock. Click. Secure. Daniel looked directly into the camera. "I used to think surviving meant waiting," he said calmly. "Turns out it means learning." Eli's stomach dropped. The next clip showed Marcus weeks later, drunk, angry, careless. The irony was suffocating. Marcus bragged into the same camera system he'd used to terrorize his brother. "He won't leave," Marcus laughed. Where would he go? Daniel watched from the doorway, invisible in plain sight. The final clip froze Eli's blood. It wasn't the accident. That part was already known. It was what happened after. Marcus, pounding on the freezer, screaming Daniel's name, promising money, apologies, mercy, and Daniel standing there, counting seconds on his phone. "I learned something in there," Daniel said softly to the camera, his back to Marcus. "Cold doesn't just take heat. It takes lies. When everything else is gone, only truth is left." The screaming faded. Daniel didn't walk away. He waited. The video ended. Eli leaned back, heart racing. This wasn't self-defense. It wasn't panic. It was orchestration. Years of abuse had created something precise, something patient. A man underestimated for so long that when he finally acted, no one recognized it as power. The next morning, the evidence server crashed. Official story. Hardware failure. Unofficial reality. The file vanished. So did Daniel Northwood County. Woke to headlines about budget hearings and school fundraisers. Life moved on. Justice, everyone believed, had been served. The monster was dead. The victim was free. Then the bodies started turning up, not fresh, preserved. A contractor found inside a walk-in freezer at an abandoned meat plant 2 counties over. A former sheriff's donor discovered locked inside a restaurant cold room after hours. Each man had a record. Domestic abuse, witness intimidation, cases that disappeared when money spoke louder than truth. The media called it coincidence. Eli didn't. Every scene had the same detail. The internal latch disabled, the external lock intact, and written somewhere nearby, always small, always neat, a single sentence. Cold tells the truth. Eli tried to warn his superiors. He was told to stand down. Northwood County didn't need another scandal. Powerful names were already being whispered. Too many. The same people who once protected. Marcus Huntley now feared the pattern forming beneath the ice. That's when Eli received the envelope. No stamp, no return address, just his name written carefully. Inside was a flash drive and a note. "You were the only one who listened. Don't follow me. Finish what you started." The drive contained files, hundreds of them, videos, documents, confessions, extracted not with force, but with time. Men locked away with their own reflections, their own memories, their own fear. Some begged, some denied, some broke, all recorded, all dated. Daniel wasn't killing indiscriminately. He was auditing the past. Eli realized the terrifying truth too late. Daniel Huntley wasn't running. He was dismantling something much bigger than his brother, a network of quiet cruelty protected by reputation and money. The freezer had been a classroom. Marcus had been the lesson. And Daniel had graduated. The final video on the drive played automatically. Daniel sat in a dimly lit room, older now, calmer. "I know how this ends," he said. "They'll call me a monster if they catch me. They won't ask who taught me. They never do." He leaned closer to the camera. But Cole doesn't forget, and neither do I. The screen went black. That night, Eli stood alone in the station, staring at the evidence board. Names connected by red string, judges, officers, business leaders, the untouchables. His phone buzzed. One new message, no number. Next freezer opened soon. Eli looked at the map. The pin was in Northwood County.